Hello, and welcome to Mixology, where we launch each episode with a beverage and discuss how customer education and customer marketing mix together as scale engines to customer success. I'm Kristine Kukich, and along with Shannon Howard, we're discussing my passion project for 2024, Content Councils. And we're celebrating with a cherry Sazerac, with or without alcohol. If you want the alcoholic version, grab a half ounce of absinthe, 2 ounces of rye whiskey, 1/4 ounce simple syrup, 1 ounce cognac, 6 dashes of Angostura bitters, 1/4 ounce cherry juice, and garnish with lemon or cherries. If you're going for the non alcoholic version, then it is 1/2 ounce of anise extract, 3 ounces of Wilderton Botanicals Bittersweet Aperitivo, 1/4 ounce simple syrup, 6 dashes of bitters, 1/4 ounce cherry juice, and then garnish with lemon or bitters. You are going to add either the anise extract or the absinthe to a rocks glass and then swirl it around to coat the inside of the glass on all edges and pour out the excess. Add the rest of the ingredients to a shaker over ice, shake it until it's cold, and then pour it into the rocks glass with or without ice. Grab your garnish, a chair, and listen in as Shannon and I talk about content councils.
My passion project this year, which is the concept of the Content Council.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thought process behind it was when we were at LoCon, they divided everybody up into teams, and then they gave everybody some discussion points around how to build out content, right? And what would you do if your organization was blowing up the functions, and how would you solve for this, right? Where they've got nothing, and now we need something, and what would you do if you could start completely from scratch? And
Okay.
all of the teams, I think there's like 6 teams, 5 or 6 teams of people.
Yeah.
Every single presentation revolved around the idea of content as the center,
Mm-hmm.
and having one group be the librarians
Mm-hmm.
of that content, and then let everybody else access the content, manipulate the content for their purpose, and store all of that in an easily accessible place, so that if we did create something for a demand gen webinar,
Mm-hmm.
education could go grab it, or the CSMs could go grab it, or the
Mm-hmm.
guys in product could go grab it because they're getting ready to do a presentation to a particular VC group on the technology, right? Or something. And all of that stuff becomes readily and easily available and manageable. And
Mm-hmm.
so that part of it became that's what I'm calling my passion project for the year, right?
Okay.
Is the idea of how do we execute to that? What does that really mean? And it builds on some of the topics that you and I have already discussed around cross-functional alignment
Mm-hmm.
as the starting point, right?
Or even just the idea of like a center of excellence that you have, like kind of this shared standard. And maybe we did it in the 2023 into 2024, that idea of a center of excellence, and not being the gatekeeper to creating all content, but actually standardizing what does content creation look like, and how can we empower other teams to create content based on, whether it's boilerplate or whatever already exists. Because I think a huge problem that companies run into is you have multiple versions of the same thing. They're all a little bit different. And you have like CS's version and sales's version and marketing's version and education's version. So instead, one, it would like save you a lot of time. But then you have this consistent presentation of, well, how do we talk about this part of our product? Or how do we teach people about this part of our product? Or what do we say about X, right? I like the idea of the librarian too, having people who catalog content and store it in some, and I'm honestly like a little bit at a loss of like, how would you store all this content? What would you?
And that's it. That's one of the things I want to flesh out with in the
Yeah.
conversation, right? So the three things that I wanted to kind of ask as it
Okay.
relates to this is, if we start with the basic assumption that cross-functional is the right starting point for this, who do you think belongs on the team, right? Who do we reach out to initially to focus on that, right? And then the second part is the logistics around it, right? How where does it belong? You know, I don't know that I don't care. I don't honestly care, right? Who owns it, right? Is it an education thing? Is it a marketing thing? Is it a support thing? I again, don't honestly care,
Yeah.
because if you're doing it right, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But the structure for that is we still tech stack, right? How do you build it in a way that people can actually use it?
Yeah.
And then the third piece is, how do you iterate against it to make sure that the content itself is consistently valid, right? So those are the three questions that I had. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking content councils, and the concept came from my passion project. If you're watching LinkedIn and any of the other channels that I've got out there, I've been talking about it quite a bit and trying to get people involved to help me with it. So the idea, of course, we're doing this with a cherry Sazerac, because we're still in the concept of between now and the Easter holiday year. So we've got all of these things going on in Mardi Gras. So it lasts a long time. It's like 3 weeks before. So the cherry Sazerac, and it's bourbon month and all of those good things. This one happens to be made with non-alcoholic, but you could certainly, of course, substitute it out. So the concept then of the content council itself is, from those three question perspectives that we deal with all the time here on Mixology. The first part of it is it's cross-functional, so who should be involved? The second question is, how do we make it happen, right? Technology-wise, what do we do with that? And then the third part of it is a concept that we consistently talk about here, which is iteration. So let's start with that first one, and the structure around cross-functional. So when we use that word, we've talked about it before, but Shannon, what would that mean for you in your setup right now today?
So, okay, would be anyone involved in content creation? I don't know, because I'm thinking, and I guess it depends on how far you want to go. If you have a sales enablement person or a product marketer who does sales enablement, you have obviously your content team, which might include social, webinars, blog content, written content, ebooks, reports, things like that. Your education team. If you have an L&D team, I think here at Intellum, we try to align different, even live events, like we have, because we host different live events across team that have different types of content. We want to make sure it's all kind of working. So I think, and I would even think someone from your customer success team, and I say that because they're typically out there creating their own stuff, like they might be creating their own videos and how-to guides. They certainly have created their own kickoff and QBR decks. They might be even crafting emails, and when we think about customer education, customer marketing as functions of scale, or about a center of excellence for content, can we create something that you can then kind of modify to fit your purpose? And so I would think anybody who's involved in that, I don't know, you think there's another party that's would typically be involved or that you'd recommend?
Basically, we're saying everyone. Right?
Everyone.
Everyone. That, because
Representative.
right, representative of each arm of the organization, because I think you're right. I think that all of the arms of marketing, right? Go to market, product marketing, demand gen, and the people that are building our content for the website, right? All of those teams definitely need to be involved, because either what they create can be leveraged to do deeper dives, with some
Mhm.
of those other post-sales teams.
Sure.
Or the flip side is true, right? We can take the deep dives that we do when we build technical documentation, courses for education, uh, deep dive webinars that where we might do use case specific actions with customers,
Mhm.
right? All of those things go more deeply into product than demand gen usually needs,
Yes. Mhm.
right?
Sure.
Or then even go to market may need, because they're not focused on the deep how to's and whys so much as this is the new functionality that we have.
Mhm.
And this is why it's super cool.
Yeah, more of that benefit value positioning than actually let's get into the nitty gritty, which I mean, some people are interested in, but it's more of that when you actually get into implementation and using a product, that content tends to be more valuable at that stage of the customer journey. Now,
So I think that the concept of everyone is really pretty viable. The challenge I think becomes, how do you manage even a single meeting of a
Mhm.
team that is really that big,
Yeah.
right? Because even in a mid-size SaaS group, that's still going to be 20 people,
Mhm. Sure.
15.
Yeah, I was thinking about this and thinking, okay, yeah, we don't want everybody from every team, maybe just a representative, but then even is there kind of a core group that's involved that then
Right? Do we
goes
kind of
out to
elevate it up
other,
a little bit higher than that and say maybe quarterly everyone gets together to
Mhm.
chat, but on a bi-weekly, tri-weekly process that in the beginning, maybe every week, but later on, maybe even just once a month, we
Yeah.
have that core group of the people that scale and the people that don't, right? The one-to-ones. So I would say success support. Well, I would say mostly PS plus demand gen is the way I would put it,
Okay.
as kind of the core group.
Okay.
If I were to pick the top 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's such an interesting concept because it's like you don't want nor need everyone to be part of the decision-making process, right? Like with any project, you have consulted parties and stakeholders. And then I think you can also potentially give people roles based on what it is that they are great at.
Right,
Are
their
they
area of
creating
specialty, right?
templates?
Yeah.
Are they creating process? Are they cataloging and documenting, like being more of that librarian of the group? Or are they, one thing I think a lot about with product marketing and content is they create what I call the wrapper language.
Mhm.
Like you tell me what you want me to wrap this in, like this does not change, but you tell me how you want me to frame it and I'll like put that language around what it is that I'm talking about. So whatever context, if I'm talking about some kind of value positioning or I don't know, industry message that we're trying to get out, that's kind of how I frame it, but then the content itself stays the same. Um, so maybe even looking at what are those pieces of the puzzle that each person is contributing, but then you have that, I don't know, that core group center of excellence that's coordinating all of this effort. And I imagine even too, like a Slack channel where everybody can collaborate together. So when I
Mhm.
used to do in-app messaging for customer marketing, so I would do everything around in-app onboarding and then also product release communications in-app. And when we had a channel where I would communicate with the product designers and product managers to make sure that one, they were aware so that when they're building
Right.
something, I didn't just create a slide out modal that's going to overlap with something that they're doing, but also because sometimes they're doing things that I don't know about. And there's not really, we had things documented in Confluence, but you're not digging through every Confluence page. Like, is there something on this page? But we just had a channel where we'd say, hey, heads up, I'm building a modal. This is the page I'm going to tag it on, or these are the pages I'm going to tag it on. This is what it looks like. Does anybody have any problems with that? Right. And we were kind of keeping that communication line open without needing to meet. I think in the beginning we tried to meet regularly, and then we thought, okay, what are we doing? We can just send the modals through the chat. But I
Well, in the
think
end,
it helped us
I'm
to
not
figure
a big fan of meetings are just project updates, right? Where we go through
Mhm.
and say, okay, you were tasked with this last week. Did you get it done? That's not
Yeah.
a valuable use of time in my book. If we're going to spend time together, we should be creating together mostly,
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
updating each other. And then certainly talking about things that are out of our immediate scope for this that have impact, right? So if you are working on a project that has impact on some of the items, good to know. Yeah, it would be nice to know, right? So we're not duplicating efforts inadvertently.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't think that should be the purpose of the meeting, right? I think that if you are going to get together, it should be to really focus on building either procedures or content.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the concept? And I say this because I was just working on a blog about modular content. What do you think about modular content elements kind of being part of this?
I think it's key. I think it is absolutely key. If we really focus on the structure of moving into the logistics of this, right? If we focus on the structure of it, then everything has to be modular, because modular then makes it easiest for everyone to twist the prism or take the Rubik's cube and adjust the side to be what they need, right?
Yeah.
And the structure for that could be that if I have this snippet of video or this snippet of text or this snippet of a conversation that somebody had on a podcast, then I can leverage that content through AI, my second passion project for the year, and establish other ways to use that content. Like my big one coming up is like, I'm going to take the use case study video and take that and build like 8 pieces of assets, 8 different assets from one thing, which I think is going to be really cool. But that's the idea, right? Because then it becomes modularized enough that demand gen can take minutes 17 through 22 and turn that into the lead in for a webinar where that particular customer comes back and talks in much greater detail about that one thing. And the guys in my content team can take minutes 8 through 12 and turn that into a blog post that goes out, and minute 15 through 17 is a video snippet that we go ahead and include on our next LinkedIn social posting or X or whatever place we're doing all of those cool things, right? And we can then leverage all of that content in those variety of ways, whether it is written words, video, or audio, and just take all of that content and leverage it and tweak it to be appropriate for my CS EBR, right? Or to be content that my support team links to so that they can push out a solution to customer XYZ. Right? And I think I think modular is absolutely key to that.
And are you thinking creating the modules up front, or kind of having this one piece of content that then gets repurposed and distributed in different ways? So like you're saying, it's all of the above.
I think, yes.
I mean, it blows my mind, because don't we all want to get more value out of our content? Do we want our messages to be aligned? I mean, so much of that content is wasted because it's created in one format, or it's only,
well, and it's boxed in, right? We box ourselves in because we create this content for my customer marketing webinar, or I did it for my education piece that is formatted in this particular way. So now my guys in demand gen can't use it. My guys in product marketing can't use it because it would take way too much time to edit that and then put the proper wrapper on it. Right. It would just take too much time, and they could do it from scratch like that. You know, and that's what I want to kind of stall, right? I don't want, I think that the creation process happens both ways. I think that we all know the 25 things that are standard, or how, pick a number, right? To pick your number, it doesn't matter. But I think we all know what those are, and that content we can build cleanly under whatever the established structure is that we decide upon, right? Whether it is primarily words, primarily video, maybe it's both. Maybe we automatically say everything is created in both. If we do that, then we get the 1, 2, 3s, right? There's a lot of AI people out there willing to sell you product to help with this, right? There's certainly lots of them out there. And the second part of it is the big picture stuff. Again, AI tools there to help you condense that into smaller pieces. We can leverage a lot of the AI tools. YouTube has this thing now where they go ahead and they'll take the big video and chop it up into smaller increments for you automatically, based on where the pauses are in the script to work with it. And there are, again, lots of people willing to do that for you, right? And there are certainly technologies out there that can help you in either direction, even to aggregating it, right? I can take a generative AI and say, here's the 7 items that are in these modules, aggregate them into one cohesive blog post.
Wow.
And what, a minute and a half later, it's all done. And I just get to edit it, because I wouldn't ever let it go without being edited. But that's a different story. So there's that part of it. But I think from a build perspective, I think that's key, right? Modularization is absolutely imperative. You need to design your content in such a way that it can be easily modularized after, if you're doing it as one big thing to start.
Yeah.
You have to think about what that structure looks like. So if you are doing a customer interview, you need to be able to compartmentalize it in ways that make sense, whether it's question driven or not, right? You still need to compartmentalize it so that it can be easily identified as a pause, as a space to segment within that content, much in the same way that we do whenever we build anything, right? When we build lessons in customer ed, when we do work with customer marketing, we don't ever want it to be too much, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah. Okay. So then comes the, I think, daunting question of how do you keep track of it all, right? Because I mean, I think about this a lot. Clearly, spreadsheets are everybody's favorite go-to, but inefficient. Because how do you search, video, audio, content of different varieties to find what you're looking for? Because I'm in I'm in a unique position where I sit at the center of a lot of content. And I create a lot of content across different channels. So I know off the top of my head, right? And when I use, yeah, but that only lasts for so long.
Well, and it's
So
the institutional learning that's in your head, right?
yeah, and how do
Because
you
you
figure that out?
created it, or you were part of the implementation, you know where it is. If you change jobs, if you move to another organization, if you retire, if you go on family leave,
Yeah.
all of those things will mean that no one else will know where that stuff is. And if I learned nothing in the last 2.5 years, it is tagging is your friend.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say people are changing jobs, so like, yes, we need to figure this out.
But that's
Yeah.
why, right? Because,
Yeah.
and I think that that's part of the initial structure, right? Every single system that I've worked with lately presents some way to tag the content.
Yeah.
And so we need to tag it for its original format, video, audio, text. We need to tag it for the topics. And this is the part that gets crazy, because product thinks of things one way, success thinks of things a different way, the guys in support look at things a different way, and
Yeah.
those of us that support all of those other functions may look at them yet another way. And
Like
so
use case, module, feature.
exactly. And the guys, you can see this most cleanly in the system that the guys at MongoDB set up when they built up their university. They really clearly defined what the hierarchy was going to look like. And they leveraged tagging significantly. And everybody I've talked to on the customer ed side, customer marketing, yes, as well, but not nearly as vocal as the customer ed people, have mentioned that tagging is one of the things that they look at whenever they're looking at systems, because that is the one thing that they know they are absolutely going to need, is the ability to tag on multiple levels, and preferably to be able to tag in a hierarchical fashion. Now, the challenge that we're talking about is, I don't know that hierarchy should matter.
And that's where I do think it's so interesting, because then how do you think about it?
Mhm.
right? And what are, it's kind of like when people search in your help site or they search for things on in your LMS, what they say may be totally different than what I say, And so how do you translate that language and make it so that people can understand and find what it is that they're looking for, which maybe
Exactly.
there's an AI
Well,
component.
which I think means that we partner with somebody like Coveo or Search Unify, right?
Mhm.
Because if we're going to tag and we're going to let a federated search type of activity kick in, because we will need to, right? We will need to be able to leverage a technology to help with that. I think that the guys that do federated search already will be the best places to lean in to that type of technology. That and database stuff, right? Anybody that's already building out databases like, the Asanas and the Jiras and the places where we normally track things. It's just that they tend to track things in columns and rows. And it's less object driven. You remember Tinker Toys? Do you remember them? They're these little round discs that have holes on the sides, and then they have like
Yeah. Yeah.
like pixie like sticks that
Yeah.
are long and short and different sizes, and you can mix them up and you can build whatever you want with these toys. They still sell them in some of the niche toy stores. They're not a big deal at like Target or anything anymore, but my good friends just got a set for Christmas this year. And the thought is that it's there's this beginning piece, the center piece, but from that you can spoke out to whatever the heck you want.
Yeah.
And I think that's the benefit that we're seeing here, right? Is we can create that piece of content that is the hub, and the spoke part of it is whatever anybody needs to deal with it in terms of creating that wrapper that we were talking about. We can wrap it up in any way that makes sense moving forward. So watch this space and we'll talk some more about it as we start clarifying it. If you're interested and want to be involved in the project, comment in the YouTube comments and we'll keep track of it there. And if you're interested, I'll be happy to call you in and to the meetings that we're going to start having here shortly about it. But that's the idea, right? It's the concept of let's cross-functionally develop content that can be used cross-functionally.
I
There we
know,
go.
wild idea. I'm saying that just, yeah. From
Like a dream, right? It's like something that we all hope for, because it means that we're not carrying the heavy load all by ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and I think we see this now that there's more like LinkedIn creators, that there's more conversation around how difficult it is to create, that it's not, but it actually takes you some time to create. And so how do we maximize the value of what we create, and how do we create in a sustainable fashion? Because there's only so many courses and pieces of content you can spin up net new before you wear out. So
yeah.
All right.
So that's the plan. Watch this space and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.